This episode is brought to you by County Line Cabins, proud sponsors of Chaos and Carry Ons. If you're looking for a cozy getaway in Northeast Alabama, County Line Cabins offers beautiful short-term rentals located just outside of Scottsboro. This means you're only minutes away from Lake Guntersville if you love being on the water, you're close to the world-famous unclaimed baggage, but if hiking is your thing, the walls of Jericho are just about a short 30-minute drive away. You can visit countylinecabins.com to see all of their rentals, click through their Airbnb or VBRO links, and book your stay. Whether you're planning a weekend escape or a full adventure, this is the perfect home base. Again, that's countylinecabins.com. Go check them out. And now, on to today's episode.
Hey friends, happy Monday. Welcome back to Chaos and Carry Ons. I'm Shelby.
And I'm Stephanie.
So today's episode is a really special one. This is something that we've mentioned in pieces over time, but we've never fully sat down and asked Stephanie the entire story. This is part one of a two-part series about Mateo's birth story and adoption journey.
So this episode is emotional, it's chaotic, it's very on brand for us, but it's deeply personal.
So grab a coffee, maybe a tissue or 2 or 10, and settle in. Let's start with the moment that changed everything. I want you to take us back to the day that you got the call.
I'm going to set the scene because I feel like this really set the scene for how this whole thing was going to go. But I should start off saying that, and this is a controversial move, but we had not told anybody that we were adopting except the people who had to fill out the friends portion of our home study. I don't remember how many we had to have. I think it was like 3 letters maybe. So very few people knew, and we had not told our parents. And mostly the reason why is because we knew that they were going to have a lot of questions that we didn't have the answers to. And also it was COVID. So adoptions were taking longer. And so we just thought, why would we worry them? Let's just wait to tell them until there's something to tell them. So Harper had COVID, and we were going to get an antibodies test. This is Derek and I. We're going to get a test. And I'm going to make a real long story short. But during Derek's blood test, he had passed out, and they were having a hard time getting him to stand up without like blacking out or almost fainting again. I don't remember exactly how many hours we were in the doctor's office that day, but I want to say that it was like 6. I know that we were right at the mark where they were telling us, maybe let's just call an ambulance and take him to the hospital. But the thing was, I was not going to be able to go to the hospital because, again, it was during COVID time. Remember when people like would be in the hospital, go and visit them? So we were like really just like hoping and praying that he would get better. And he did. And so I brought him home. And at this point, it's like probably 2:30 or 3 o'clock. I remember calling his mom, and she had gotten Harper, but I had to go and get Sophia from school, and then she had to directly go from there to get a dentist appointment. So I had gotten Derek home, and I was in the car with Sophia. We were on our way to the dentist office, and I saw the number come up on my screen in the car, and it was a number that I didn't recognize, and so I answered it, and lo and behold, it was this... It was a woman from the adoption agency, and she was telling us, about that she was going to be sending me this, what they would call a situation, and if we'd be interested in it, to reply yes to the email. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, like, what are the chances of this, right? That this would happen today, and all of this is going on. So I drop Harper off. I go back home. Derek's laying in the bed, and we look over the email together, and I remember looking at him and saying, I think this might be the one. And I wasn't saying that because it was the perfect situation. I was saying that because it was so chaotic. Like,
Mhm.
this is the
It
one.
it felt normal.
Yeah. So, I email her back, "Yes, like, yeah, we'll be interested," and, I talked about the way that that works, with getting like, them sending you the situations, you getting picked in the, adoption episode. So, I go to get Harper, and, I saw that same number pop across my screen, and this is just, like, maybe an hour or 2 later, and I'm thinking, "Okay, she's wanting to know something else, or maybe there's something else in the file that she thought I didn't see." That is what it's coming across to me, like, that's what I was guessing. And, I can't remember exactly what she said, but I remember she goes, "Well, I'm just gonna cut right to the chase. Congratulations, you're now what we call matched." And when she said that, I don't remember anything else that she said after that because I was in so much of, like, a shock. I should say that we had applied to other what they call situations. I think it was 2 or 3 other ones, and we wouldn't hear back for days. One time it was weeks. So I was truly not expecting that at all. And so all I can think of is, like, here Derek's, like, laying in the bed and, like, all these things happen, and now, like, she's telling me that we're matched, and she's telling me, "Well, she's not due for 6 more weeks, and we're gonna start sending you all the paperwork." And so I go home and, I tell Derek we're matched and I just remember he was in shock. And I was asking the girls, did they remember us telling them? Because I really don't remember telling them. And Harper says that she does remember it, but she says we were just in the car and that she overheard me talking to the consultant. And what I remember her saying to me is adoption is very hard and it's difficult and it's heartbreaking, but this baby deserves to be celebrated. So in this moment, like, we're going to celebrate the joy of adoption. And I guess that was the conversation that Harper overheard. And so she was like, I knew that something was happening, you know?
Mhm.
So I guess she said she started asking me questions and like, she pretty much figured it out. And then she said, when you went to pick up Sophia, like, you just told us because I was like, Sophia, we're getting a baby. Like, um, but anyways, yeah. So then I went home and the only person that I told that we were matched was Shelby. And I started at the very beginning of what happened that day. I don't know why I had not told, I don't think I had told you about Derek passing out. Like, I think it was just too crazy and chaotic.
I think
And I
I had gotten tiny snippets because I too was thinking back to this day. I think, like, I knew that he was there and I knew it was happening, but I wasn't getting the play-by-play like normal.
Yeah. Yeah. I just remember her exact, like, words back to me were, "I did not see that coming," like, the ending, because I remember I kept saying, "Wait, just wait for me to get through, like,
Mhm,
what all happened today."
mhm.
And so, um, then we were like, "Okay, well, when are we gonna tell our parents?" You know? And I remember I said, "Let's tell them that we're gonna go over there for dinner this weekend, and we'll tell them then." And the next day, Derek woke up and he said, "I just have this feeling that we should just go ahead and tell them. They're probably going to have a lot of questions. And I think it would be good for them to kind of process it because it's going to be shocking to them." And so I said, "Okay, that's a good idea." So we told his parents, then we told my parents. Well, lo and behold, he was born early 3 days later. So I'm so glad we told them. Can you even imagine? It would have been They would have been blindsided by it. So anyway,
That was a spoiler alert. I didn't want you to tell that yet.
well, you can
'Cause
cut that part out.
that's the best part of the story. So how long did it take for it to feel real after this phone call? I know you said, like, because of the day, you're in shock. Like, was it that same day that it was like, "Okay, this is really happening?" Was it days later? Like, when did it feel real to you?
I think it started to kind of feel like this could be a possibility when we told our parents. I would say that's
Okay.
the first time when I said even when I told Shelby, it still didn't really feel real, but I would say, like, when we told our parents, that's when it started to feel like this could happen. This
Yeah.
might happen.
So, once the call happens, chaos mode is activated, but I remember how the story goes. And 3 days later, you get another call.
Yes. So it was 6 in the morning and I was getting the girls ready for school and the phone started ringing. And again, I saw that same number pop up. At this point, I had saved it in my phone. It said like adoption, you know, family, whatever it said. And I thought, oh, she probably needs like more paperwork or whatever. And when I answered it, she sounded like groggy and panicked. And she said, Mrs. Letson, her water broke and you need to get to Houston as soon as possible. And I remember Derek said, are they sure that she's in labor? And the woman goes, is he in shock? Like thinking, we're all in shock. Um, and then it was just like totally chaotic from that moment until I mean, I don't for days later. It was just pure chaos. I said that it looked like a scene out of Home Alone. Uh and I did call Shelby and I remember like screaming something at her and like telling her you need to like book me a flight, you need to book me a room, like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to send you the name of the hospital that he's going to be born at. And because I tried to do it and I couldn't do it. Like it was too overwhelming and I was trying to pack and do it at the same time. And you know how when you're panicked and you keep going from one task to the other and you're not doing either of them well?
Mhm.
Yeah, that was me. And so I remember Shelby called me and she goes, I don't know what's going on in Houston, but I can't find any hotel rooms. And that was a glimpse into the future of what was to come and why that there was
That
no hotel rooms.
that tells you everything you need to know about me because I do not watch the news, and anytime there's weather heading my way, Stephanie always texts me because she's like, "I know you don't watch the news, so here's your heads up." That
Yeah.
tells you, but I wanna tell my point of view of this because you talked about it being like the Home Alone moment. So,
Mhm.
I work from home, and like she said, this was 7-ish in the morning. And Stephanie frequently will call me in the morning, but it's usually after the kids are in school, because the mornings are just chaotic. So it was kind of out of the norm that I saw your name on my phone so early. And I was like, oh no, something's happened. Well, I answer the phone and you say, this lady is in labor. And I'm like, who is that? And she said, the mama, the birth mama. We're having a baby. And I was like, who's having a baby? Like it was well, it was early, but it was like this was 3 days later and I knew this was like a 6-week thing. So I'm like, who is in labor? And she's just you're screaming frantically, book me a flight. Get on the computer right now. I was like, "Okay, okay, okay." And I could take you to the spot in my house where I was standing. My computer was in this certain spot. I could take you there where I stood or where I sat to book these flights. And that's when, like, I was sweating. And so I had my phone on speakerphone. You had your phone on speakerphone. You're yelling at me and yelling at Derek. Grab that underwear. Grab don't forget those socks over there. Whatever it was. Like, okay, yeah, that time's fine or that airport's fine, whatever. So it was the most chaotic, even for me being 2 hours away, it was chaotic for me too, but it, like, took so long for me to comprehend what was going on, but nobody wants to get yelled at right when they open their eyes.
Well, it was funny because I remember, like, when we showed up, I didn't have a hairbrush, I didn't have socks, I think I had 2 pairs of underwear, and it was, like, very cold there, and it was going to get colder, and Derek only had a light jacket, and I had brought my winter coat only because it was cold in Nashville when we were
Mhm.
leaving. But Derek was like, "Oh, I'll be fine." And in my mind, I just thought, "Oh, we're going to Houston, it's warm." Wrong, it was not. That's a spoiler alert. But he ended up being born like, they sent us the text, and they said, "He's here, and he's stable, and that's all we know." And I got that text as we were filling up our car at the gas station that's by our house, so it was probably, like, 12, and that was the only thing that we knew for the next 3 days. I guess we'll get into that, but anyway. then
So did
we
it feel surreal, like this travel day, knowing that you were about to meet your son? Like, I
yes.
can't even imagine that feeling. I mean, I can't imagine what I think it would feel like, but describe that.
Yeah. It was very surreal, I would say that. I remember I kept looking at Derek and saying, "This feels so weird." Like, it just feels so, like I remember telling him 4 days we didn't even know about him. And now today, like, he's here, we're going to see
Mhm.
him, like, I just could not get a good grasp on it. Or I don't remember what episode it is, but I talk about, me hugging the black man instead of Derek. You have to go back and listen to that because that is a gem story that really, like, paints the picture of how chaotic that it was. Um, but yeah, I accidentally hugged this black man in the airport and thought it was Derek, and the black man, like, did not appreciate that at all. And, um,
Because Derek is the whitest white
it's
man you've ever seen in your life. There's no accidental resemblance there.
well well, so then we get on the plane. I don't know if I've ever told Shelby this story, but we get on the plane and, well, we're flying into an ice storm, but we didn't know this. It was the worst turbulence I've ever experienced in my life, and we had a stack of papers that had to be signed and scanned, and we were gonna do it with our phone, like, ASAP. So, we're on this flight signing these papers because we haven't had time to sit down and do it yet, and it's bumpy, and I almost start to cry, and there's this woman that's sitting beside me, and, she says, "I can tell that you're really nervous." And I said, "Yes, I'm extremely nervous." But and she doesn't really pay attention to what I'm signing, I guess. And she, like, pulls out her phone and she's like, "Let's play, like, Sudoku or something," because that's how frantic and panicked that I am. She's worried about this girl that's like panicking. And so this woman distracted me through the entire flight. That's not a joke. Like, when I was talking to Derek about us recording that, he said, "You need to mention the woman that was on the plane." So the woman, like, the flight lands, and like I said, this is a terrible flight. And she even said to me, like, "I fly once a week, and this is the worst flight that I've ever been on." Nobody said anything about the ice storm, might I add, but we land, and then I just tell her, I'm like, the reason why that I'm so panicked is because we're adopting a baby, and so I'm really nervous, and then that was, like, the worst flight of my life." And she looks at me, and now remember, this is during COVID times, and she hugs me, and she says, "God brought us together." And then she literally, like, she says, "I'm gonna miss my flight," and, like, she takes off. Well, she left, like, this it was like a drink cozy on, her seat, and, like, when I turn, like, to give it to her, like, she's gone. Even Derek's like, it was just like, poof, like, she was just gone. And so I still have that drink cozy to this day, and I keep it in my closet, like, on the shelf. And it's just, like, a reminder of that woman sitting beside me.
I'm trying
Anyways,
really
that
hard not to cry right now, but that is the sweetest thing ever. If you've told me that, I don't remember it, and I think I would remember that.
I probably didn't tell a lot of people that. Probably my own mother is gonna be like, She didn't tell me that story." And to be honest, I probably didn't tell a lot of people that story because there was so many moving parts to that day.
You know, actually, a lot of people over the weekend, this past weekend at church, were talking about angels unaware, and I really think that was your angel.
Yeah, I felt like that too. Um, like, I still remember her just very well. I can remember her. And like I said, it was like we were wearing masks, and anyway, it was definitely just felt like, okay, everything's gonna be okay, even though it didn't feel like everything was gonna gonna be
Yeah.
okay because it was so, like, chaotic. Um,
Mhm.
so then we get to Houston, and of course it's too late to go to the hospital. So we decide that we're gonna go the next day, and we get up really, really early, and we get to the hospital. This would have been a Saturday, and this would have been the 13th. And the woman, I had a really hard time getting past security, like a really, really hard time. And I think it was like an hour or two. And finally, they're like, they're going to let me up. And I get up there, and the nurse stops me, and she says, "I'm sorry, but since it's the weekend, the social worker's not here, and she would make an exception for you being a weekend, but I am not going to make any exceptions for you, and you're not going to be able to come in today. So I was bummed, but I should have added, like, we had no baby stuff. Like, we had not bought anything. We had nothing. I brought, like, 2 blankets. So Derek was like, you know what? This might be like a blessing in disguise. So let's just take today and let's go and find, like, he's going to need clothes. He's going to need diapers. Like, he's going to need all the things. So I will say, like, I have this wrote down in my notes, that is when I remember that we had the first moment that, like, it actually felt real. Because I remember Derek, I still remember it so, so well. He was holding up this little dinosaur, and I kept it, like, this little dinosaur, preemie sleeper. And it was, like, for a little boy. And he said, I just can't believe that, like, after all, like, the girl things, because if you have girls, like, you know exactly what I'm talking about, like the pinks and the bows and the princesses and all the things. He said, I can't believe we're buying boy stuff. And I remember saying to him, it kind of feels like it feels real right now. And he was like, I know, that's what I was thinking. It just, like, in that moment, that was the first time that it felt like we're here. This is happening. So we spent that entire day, like I said, finding baby clothes and all the things. And I'm actually really glad that we didn't buy anything, because that was, like, one of the funnest days that that I've ever had, was just, like, going and buying, like, little boy stuff for, and not, like, the fear of, like, what if this never happens? You know what I mean? Buying stuff and, like, what if we never get picked, or those type of feelings. It was like, okay, this is happening and this is why we're buying it. That was really just, I mean, we even had to buy bottles. We didn't have bottles. We had nothing. When I say we had nothing besides
You didn't even have a
Peter Pan.
hairbrush.
I know. Besides, like, a Peter Pan blanket that I had bought online. Like, that was literally it. But I remember telling Shelby, we went into, like, a Dillard's, and I bought, like, this little smocked sleeper, because I was thinking, like, here I bought, like, my girl these nice outfits, and I wanted him to have something nice, but I didn't know where to go. So we just went into Dillard's, and, like, you know, they have that little dressy section in there. And I
Yeah,
just
so
got him,
I
like, a little.
remember this day. I remember this day too. It's funny how this stands out in my mind too. But I remember searching for baby boutiques, because anybody that knows me personally knows that that's, like, right down my alley. Taylor has been the best dressed child since she was in the womb. But I remember researching that around the area that you were. But because it was Saturday, for whatever reason, none of them were open on Saturday, but it also had to do with the weather. So I was trying to find you baby boutiques. And then finally I was like, you know what? You're just gonna have to find a Dillard's or something, because
Yeah.
that's all you got.
Yeah. Yeah. So then it would have been the next day. It was on Valentine's Day. I go to the hospital, and they're like, okay. Again, it was like a hour ordeal. And then they tell me, okay, we're going to let you, see him for the first time. And Derek couldn't come with me because it was COVID. And I still, like, it's like I can, like, when I think about it, it's like I can remember the overwhelming smell of, like, the NICU. And you go through those double doors and everything. And that was the first time that I laid eyes on him. And I talked about seeing him for the first time, I would say, pretty well in depth in one of those adoption episodes. So I'm not going to spend as much time on it. But when I saw him for the first time, that was when we knew he's okay. Like, he doesn't have any major issues, just from looking at him. Because I should back up and say that when she first brought me up there, she brought me into this room. I don't know, Shelby, if you've ever been into it, like a NICU where the babies are, like, in a dark room, and they have, like, the masks on. I don't know if you've ever like, been in there before. It's, like, very quiet, and they all
Yes,
look
I
very
have.
fragile is a good
Mhm.
term. Well, when she brought me in there, my mind is racing, and I'm thinking, he's not okay, like, something's wrong. Like, I remember I'm, like, begging, like, Lord, please, just please let this baby, because I at this point, we had no clue. And her and this other nurse are talking Spanish to each other, and she's saying to her, where is the baby that's being adopted? And she says back to her, he's in the other room. And she looks at me and says, oh, that's a good sign. he's in the other room. So, like I said, then we go into this room, and I remember, like, I walked around the little glass. I could just see, like, the back of his head. And, when I looked around, like, when I came around, it was like, he even had his eyes open, and he's, like, looking at me. Like, no tubes, no nothing. I mean, he looks perfectly fine. He was 5 pounds and 8 ounces and 17 inches long. And in my mind, I just thought, I don't deserve this. I'm so undeserving of this. And like I said, went like way in depth in that. But I remember he felt familiar. I can't explain it, but he did. He just felt familiar. I still even remember like the smell of his head, you know. It's like
Mhm.
it was just like so sweet. But I will say that I remember it was really funny. One of the things that I wrote down to mention was that the nurse, I guess she just saw the way that I was looking at him, and she said, "Mrs. Letson, I don't know if that baby will ever learn to walk." Boy, she had no idea, did she?
He's
Uh,
almost 5 and still complains to walk.
I know. He still wants to be carried. I remember, like, telling Shelby, like, "Look, we have a little Mexican boy." Like, he was so small. And I say that like we got gypped because, like, here they gave me this little tiny baby, and I thought I was gonna have this little tiny baby, and now he's a giant.
Mhm.
But he still wants to be like a giant baby. It's really funny. I don't know. That was just I can't explain it, but it was funny. The nurses, they would joke about it all the time that the other moms were like kind of in and out, but we would hang out there like all day long with him. And so they would say that all the time. She's gonna be holding on to him forever, but
Don't we all?
I know.
So, what surprised you the most about that moment?
I think it was really the way that he felt familiar. I also think it was I always compare, like, when you have a baby to, like, the Grinch. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but it's like your heart grows, like, 5 sizes that day, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I think, like, I thought, well, it grew and it grew again, it grew again, and I guess that was the part that was the most surprising because when I'm holding him, this is February the 14th, and so he's been 2 days. So, I don't know, you wanna say, like, roughly 5, 6 days that we knew about him? Like, it felt so just, like, natural the way that we just, like, everything just flowed right into it, and, like, we got right into the groove. I remember even Derek saying that. It felt very the words that Derek used was familiar. And if you've had a baby before and you have, like, a gap, it's it's scary, but it's not as scary as the first time, but you kind of feel like, "Oh, this is like riding a bike," you know? I'll say the
Mhm.
part that didn't feel familiar was the whole NICU. That part felt very scary, and I think a lot of it, we felt like we were at the mercy of the doctors, and I've heard other NICU moms say that, and that's a weird feeling, but
Well, you also are in a totally different state in a brand new hospital in the middle of a global pandemic. Let's be real. So, I mean, a
yeah,
lot of that, there was a lot of different. So, I feel like that makes sense why you would
yeah.
feel that way.
I just felt like so much gratitude. I truly felt like I did not deserve to be, his mother. It felt like the greatest gift. So I look back at those NICU days, though, with so much, that was, like, good bonding time, just me and him, with, like, no real distractions, besides, like, Armageddon outside, but besides that, it was just I don't know, it's almost like if you have in your mind that this is the best thing that's ever happened, it doesn't matter what else is going on, you know?
That's
And
so true.
that's really how it felt, like, I could just ignore all of it. I was spamming everyone with, like, 1,000 pictures of him because I just thought he was, like, the cutest baby that I had ever seen. He was so hairy. I had never seen a baby that hairy before. And then that night is when everything went from chaotic to just downright I don't even know what you wanna call it. It was just, well,
What's
the
worse than
adaptation.
chaos? I can't even think of a word that's worse than chaos.
Yeah.
We use
Well
chaos all the time because it's on brand, but
mhm. Yeah.
it's worse than that. But because
So
this is chaos and carry ons, the universe says This is
Mhm.
too smooth, so let's add weather.
So that night, well, it was in the evening time, the, nurse came up to me and she said, "Mrs. Lutson, has anybody said anything to you about the weather?" And I said, "Well, when we went to rent the car," and I should have mentioned that, when we went to rent the car, we could not find a car to rent. And I said, "They told us that the reason why that it was so hard to rent a car and to get a hotel is because that there's, like, an ice storm coming," but he said, like, it might not do anything. And she said, "Well, they're really thinking it might be bad, and so bad actually that they're asking everyone to get off the road by," I don't remember if she said 8 or 9, and at this point it was like 5. She said, "My advice to you is to go and get dinner, have a nice dinner, and go get prepared, go to the store, and make sure that you have plenty of things." Why we did not take this woman's advice, I will never know. I don't know what in the world that we were thinking. I guess in my mind too, I just thought, "Oh, the hotel will have plenty of food." And I'm just going to tell you, spoiler alert, they did not. So the next day we wake up and everything is iced over. We couldn't get out of the parking garage, I don't think. But the hotel had food. And I remember that Derek ended up getting out of the parking garage that day. And that was the first day that he went to see Mateo. I remember he couldn't go until like maybe 3 o'clock, because the parking garage had thawed enough for him to get out. And I was nervous about it, but he's like, "Oh, Steph, like I've drove up north enough times, you know. I mean, we still go up every Thanksgiving and there's a lot of times that it will snow and ice." So he wasn't worried about it at all. I think it was the very next day, or maybe it was 3 days later. Um, and I'm going to tell another story that Shelby probably doesn't know. At this point, like we had been looking for grocery stores to open and none had opened. The hotel had ran out of food. I remember I had a Pop-Tart in my purse. We went over to the hospital and they said they didn't have any more food. We went into the parking garage because Derek's like, "We're going to have to leave to go to try to find something." And all of the pipes in that parking garage had burst. It looked like a movie. I'm not kidding. And it was like huge icicles hanging and it looked like a skating rink. Well, Derek's like, "I can't get out of here." And so he said, "We're going to have to start walking and we're going to have to try to find food." And I looked at him like, "Are you nuts? Like, we're not even dressed for cold weather." And I'm pretty sure the real feel was like -5 at this point. I remember it was really, really cold. And they kept having on the news, like, "This is the coldest day it's ever been in Houston since 19 whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course it is, you know." And so Derek, I remember him saying like, "Well, I got you a hairbrush at there's a Walgreens right down the street. And maybe they've opened." And I just want to point out also that when we were walking down the street, it's a ghost town. Like you can see there's nobody out. And at this point I just start praying and I'm like, "Lord, please just let us find something to eat. Like just don't let us have to walk like miles in this cold to find something to eat." And I remember at that point offering up the Pop-Tart. Like, "What if we have the Pop-Tart, Derek?" I did not want to walk in this cold weather. And he's like, "No, Steph, like we've got to find something to eat." I'm like, "Okay." So we walked maybe like a block from where we were. Like I said, we passed the Walgreens and we see this little barbecue store, like a barbecue restaurant. And it looks like there's somebody in there, like, but there's no like open sign or anything. And Derek opens the door and he says to the man, are you going to open?" And he said, "Actually, this store has been running on a generator so that we didn't lose all of our food. And our generator only has 7 days or 7 hours left. I literally slid all the way here just to start cooking this food so we don't lose it all." He said, "But I knew that the hospitals were running low on food. And so I sent a message over there to have people come and eat." He's like, "So just sit down here because I'm almost done. And I'm going to sell these barbecue sandwiches for like, I don't know, it was like $5 or something like that." However much it was. It was like going to be that and like, I think a bag of chips and a drink is what he said. So we sat there and we waited. We got this barbecue sandwich and then we got one to go home with us. And that is what we ate that day. And it's that barbecue sandwich. I'm not kidding you. I still think about that to this day. When it's really, really cold outside, I picture us like walking around in this like just freezing cold, like just like all like bundled, like, just like like shivering, trying to find something to eat, and just seeing that little barbecue store. And it was funny because this nurse walks in there. And all we were eating with was doctors and nurses. And one of the things that man had was gumbo. He said it was in the freezer and he had just like defrosted it. And Derek was eating a bowl of it. And the man said, this nurse, he goes, do you did you get gumbo? And Derek said, yeah. He goes, you looked like a gumbo eating guy. Well, I have no idea what that meant, but I still to this day call Derek a gumbo looking guy because I told Derek that's probably one of those comments that you lay in bed and say, why did I say that to that man?
Yeah. Well, I remember that story. I mean, I don't remember all of that, but I remember that part of it because I remember
Mhm.
thinking like, what does that mean?
Anyways, like I said, that was very chaotic. I remember, I think it was the next day, the parking garage melted a little bit, better that we could get out. And I remember for the next several days, when we would walk down the street, you would just see like water like pouring out of, I'm talking businesses, up from the ground. I can't explain it, but it was bizarre. Well, then we were under a boil advisory, and Mateo's hospital had no water, and they had no water for 7 days. It went from scrub your hands like really good for however many minutes and change your what do you call that? Like your gown that you put on. Change it every time you come in and leave to, okay, here's your gown and you're going to have it for the rest of the time. And if you need to go to the bathroom, there's only this one toilet in the hospital that works. And when you need to wash your hands, you're going to use this water bottle. You could flush the toilet, but you could not wash your hands in that bathroom.
Oh
I don't
my
know how they
goodness.
Yeah, I don't know how they did that, but most of the places that we went into, like, after that, like, grocery stores, even restaurants when they started opening back up, they would give you something to drink, but it had to be, like, nothing that was made with water. So it was like, what do you call it? Like, it had to be like a soda, with the what do you call that? Like the
Like the
syrup.
fountain drink. Yeah.
Because I guess that was already like, they're not adding water to that. Or you would get a canned drink, no ice, and you couldn't use the bathroom there. That was for even Derek was like, "That was like every restaurant we went into."
So was your hotel walking distance to the hospital?
The hotel was a half a mile, or maybe it was like a little just under a mile. I remember that it was almost like just far enough where it was not like we could have walked, but we didn't because it was just so cold outside.
So when the pipes burst in the hospital and y'all started walking to get food, you were able to get out when you got back to the car? Or
Yeah.
did you go to that place from the hotel?
No, yeah, we went from that place to the hotel, like, we just walked out, like, just out on the
Okay.
street.
Okay. I
Mhm.
thought you were
'Cause we could
leaving the hospital to go there. That's why I was asking because I was trying to figure out where you went in the middle point of this.
No, no. I kinda thinking it was like a mile because I remember Derek saying that, like, we would be walking, like, 20 minutes, I think is what he said. So, maybe it was a little
Mm.
over a mile. And he thought that that was too far to walk for how cold it was, and we were not, like I said, I'm pretty sure it was, like, -5, -10, it was, like, some crazy wind chill number, and we didn't have, like, thick winter coats or anything. So another thing that I was telling this to Derek the other day, and I said, "Do you remember this?" And he was like, Kind of." Um, the hotel, I think it was running on a generator at this point, and so the heat was not working super good, and it was so, so cold. There was a fountain in the hotel lobby, and it was frozen. Can you even imagine it? That's how cold it was.
Mm-mm.
And in our room, I think the thermostat said 50. I don't remember it saying because I was like, maybe it said 48, but Derek thought it was like maybe 50. And you could feel the draft coming in from the window. And so Derek went and asked the front desk if they would give us some extra sheets. I should also say we were up, like, this hotel was tall, and it was connected to it was right across the street from MD Anderson. It was connected to a different hospital. And you could, like I said, you could feel the draft coming in. So he put like sheets over the window somehow to try to block it. And then he had on like jeans and a shirt and a hoodie and like socks. And I remember I had on a bunch of clothes. And we were huddled up in the bed next to each other. And then like under these extra blankets that the hotel had given us. I'm sorry, it's funny.
It's funny now that you live to tell about it.
And we were huddled up next to each other, and we both looked at each other, like, when we got in the bed and got next to each other and, like, got up next to each other, we just both busted out laughing. I remember he was, like, hugging me, and he's like, "This is the craziest thing that has ever happened to us." And we just probably laughed for 5 minutes straight. Like, laughed until we cried because it was so unbelievable that this was happening. He even said, like, he couldn't have been born, like, oh, I don't know, next week? Like, it's supposed to be nice. And anyways, eventually it did get warmer and it did warm up, but it still was crazy. Okay, let's go back. It was COVID time. And so you couldn't find any food. I don't know if people remember that. Remember when we were all fighting over toilet paper? Okay, well, this was during that time. This is during that time. So it was hard to find a lot of the necessities. Okay, well, add in Armageddon, and it was really hard to find necessities after that happened. So I remember going and standing in line at a Kroger, and it was super long line to try to finally get like snacks and stuff because they had finally started opening the grocery stores back up. And, Derek, if anybody knows him, he can talk to any stranger. And so he just sparked up conversation. And I remember the man in front of us, him saying like, we got stuck here. We're adopting a baby. And the man's like, my daughter is adopted. And he was like, he was so nice. And that man, like we stood in line with him, I think for an hour. And I actually went back to the car because I could not take the cold. But Derek was like, no, we got to stay in this line. We got to get water and like just different things. So that man told us all the places that we needed to eat. And like we had like a running list. And I'm going to tell you, that man, he was spot on with his recommendations. So, but like I said, we were under a boil advisory, so we didn't lose water, but you couldn't brush your teeth with it. You had to brush it with bottled water. Anyway, I could go on and on and on about all of the things. Like I said, there was like, I remember when we first started getting back into the grocery stores, it was like, we had a hard time finding his formula. We had a hard time finding diapers after that. Like all the things. It was just that one moment of us laying in the bed together with like huddled up with all the clothes and blankets and like it was like 50 degrees. Yeah. That could have been like the cover of his baby book.
This honestly feels like the perfect place to pause. Not because the story is done though, but because everything was still unfolding at that hospital.
Yes. So in part 2, we'll pick up right in the hospital and we'll talk about our 10-day stay waiting on ICPC to finally tell us that we could go home.
So make sure you're subscribed and come back for part 2 next week. And as always, may your flights be on time and your luggage never lost. But if it's not, that's where the fun begins.